I don't want to be a consumer. I am Dr. Mika and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the concept of consumer. Now, we kind of live in the society where we kind of take for granted that all of us are consumers. No matter whether you are born boy or a girl, black, white, Asian, whatever, you can still be a consumer. Everyone is allowed to be a consumer. In fact, everyone is forced to be a consumer. No one asked me whether I wanted to be a consumer, and here we are. Everyone is claiming that I am one. Now, we have to think about the whole idea where this consumerism comes from, especially the idea that everyone is a consumer, and why? Why do we live in societies like this? Well, if we look at this website, Etymon Online, which is a website that tells us the origin of words and their meanings. When we look at the word for consumer there, we can see that it was just in 1700s, actually in 1745, when the meaning, or the word consumer was used in the meaning that we are talking about today, as someone who consumes, like the opposite of producer in the sense. 1700s, mid-1700s. Before that, the word was not used in that sense. So we can kind of assume that before that time, societies did not see people as consumers first and foremost. Of course, people used money even back in the day. I'm not saying that. They lived in some sort of capitalistic societies because there was money, and money was used to buy stuff. But it's more of the mentality and how it has switched to this consumer mentality over these years. Now, if we look at the usage of the word consumer, also Etymon Online gives us this very nice graph, I put it somewhere here, where you can see that the word consumer was not as widely used in the 1800s. There was some usage, but not so much. Unfortunately, this historical data does not go all the way to 1700, so we cannot see what happened when the word actually in this meaning emerged. But we can see that, okay, in the 1800s, people were not talking about consumers that much. It was only in the 1900s when the word and its uses started to gain more traction. People started talking more and more about consumers. Consuming. We have to consume. We are consumers. And if we look where it peaked, it looks like it peaked around at 1970s, late 70s, before 80s. That's where the peak was. So I guess that at that point it was still a relatively new thing. Everyone was talking about the consumer, and then you can see that it has been declining a little bit after that. This decline doesn't mean that we are past some sort of peak of consumption. I think that now we are kind of everyone has accepted the fact that we are consumers, and it's something that doesn't need to be spoon-fed to us anymore. It's something we take for granted. It's kind of interesting, that this whole consumer idea is so recent, and now we are dealing with this waste problem. People are consuming too much. Too many things that we consume are not recyclable, and they end up in landfills somewhere, God knows where. And now, if you were to ask an alien, if an alien came to this world and they saw what people were doing, then I think they would say that the purpose of people is to have a job so they can buy stuff they don't need that they can dump away. So the word for consumer has been getting more and more used in societies, and we can also see that it has become too normalized even. If you look at advertising, and if you think about deep down what advertising is, then isn't it just propaganda? If we think about how one would define the word propaganda, it's usually some sort of entity. Maybe it's a political party, maybe it's the government, maybe it's some sort of a company who want to persuade people in a certain way that they believe in an ideology, or they want to buy something, or they want to have something. They believe in something, or they hold beliefs they didn't have before. And advertising does that. And the strangest thing is that if you ask just about anyone, everyone is going to say that propaganda is bad, but yet we are surrounded by ads. And ads are everywhere. And they are so normalized, it's accepted by the society. The societies accept that their citizens, not consumers, their citizens are being bombarded by ads from left and right. And the worst part is that, of course, all of us, we know when we see an ad, we know it's just an ad. But that's just for traditional advertising. There is so much more to advertising than just seeing an ad on YouTube or ad on some webpage, or if you still watch TV, seeing an ad on TV. No, there is much more than that. Of course, there are these more sneakier ways of advertising, like influencer advertising. You give some money to an influencer and then they start pushing certain agenda. Just saying, like, my email is somewhere there. If you have money, then you know who to contact. But then, apart from that, there are so many things that we kind of take for granted, that we think that these are the absolute truths. And it turns out that behind these truths, behind the things that they teach us in school, or behind the things that we have learned from our parents, or behind the things that everyone is saying, there was an advertising campaign at some point. And this thing that we believe in is nothing but a hoax. For example, I was very shocked to find out that there was this Got Milk campaign in the US, where they were kind of forging research papers to make milk sound more magical with these superpowers that's gonna help you. It's gonna make sure you have a healthy bone structure, good hair, good skin, good muscles, whatever. Just drink milk and all their problems are solved. Now, yeah, milk is healthy, but they were really over exaggerating these things. This happened in the US. It was an advertising campaign in the US. And this just like shattered my world, because I remember when I was a kid in Finland, we had these posters in school cafeteria, all kind of posters about how good milk is for you. There were these skeleton figures, and one of them was collapsed because he didn't drink milk, so his bones gave in. One of them was brushing his hair, and then some hair strands came out because no milk, so of course your hair is just gonna fall. This kind of like a propaganda infomercial, if you want to call it like that. These kind of things that I thought this was the truth, because this is what they had in school, and usually in Finland schools don't have that much advertising in them. And of course that's the thing that even our teachers told us. So an advertising campaign in the US can have this ripple effect that other countries that are not really in the market even of their dairy producers, they start believing in whatever they say in part of their advertising campaign. Another thing, you can go and ask just about any person and ask them what is the most important meal of the day, and most of them are going to tell you it's breakfast. And again, this was nothing but an advertising campaign. It was kind of like it was an idea put forward by Kellogg, and then he came up with the cereals, so then you can start having his delicious cornflakes for breakfast, because that's the most important meal of the day, and so on and so forth. There are like so many things that we are not even aware that we are victims of advertising, and societies see that this is an okay thing to do because we are consumers. And if we don't consume, that's a bad thing. Now, as of late, I have been starting to fight against this idea of me being consumer, really like questioning it, because there's always the new and nice thing that I want to buy. Of course, there is never a computer that is good enough. There is never a phone that is good enough. All of them are buggy. All of them have, by design, some flaws. So then I kind of get the need that I want to buy a new one at some point. If we think about the social aspect of consumption, you look around, you see people, and some people might judge you based on what you have or have not consumed. If you don't have the latest iPhone, they might frown upon you. If you don't have the nicest clothes, they might go like, why don't you get better ones? And so on and so forth. The weirdest thing is that, like, if you have a steady income, you're getting you're getting like an okay amount of money. And then you just always wear the same clothes. You have a dead old phone that is buggy and laggy, and you are driving an old car. What do you think people are going to tell you around you? They're going to say things like, you could afford better. Just buy a new phone already. Oh, why are you driving that old car? Just buy a new one, right? And that kind of usually comes from a good place, right? Those people, they know you could have better. They think that you deserve better, and maybe they just want you to have something better so that like your life gets easier. Like definitely, it might get easier if you have a newer car that has some sort of new features like self-driving and whatever. Like maybe your life would get easier, but you can still use your old car just fine. And if we think about the flip side of it, if you think about someone who consumes a lot, they have nice clothes, they have a nice car, maybe they have a big boat that they couldn't afford, but they just got a loan to buy one anyways. If people are gonna make any comments there, it's usually like nasty comments, and people don't give the comment from a good place. It comes from a bad place. It's usually because of jealousy. People don't like to see you having so many nice things they don't. So we kind of live in this weird world where the idea of consumer is so normalized that if you don't consume enough, it's kind of seen as helping you to tell you that, hey, you should buy more stuff and nicer stuff. And then if you consume too much, I mean, people get jealous because they don't get to consume as much. Very few people are going to come to you and say, hey, maybe you shouldn't buy all those things. You could do something better with your money. Let me help. That's hardly ever the case. Of course, there are all kind of people, and that might happen. But most of the time, it comes out of jealousy. Okay, if we think about the idea of us being consumers, there are some negative things and some positive things about it. I can only find one positive thing that comes from us being consumers. The positive thing is that the more we consume, the better our economy works. And if our economy works well, then most of us don't have to worry about losing our jobs, right? Because companies make money, they don't need to save money, they don't need to fire anyone, right? Now that's a good thing. And it's the weirdest thing in the sense that now I have seen even the Finnish newspapers, they are shaming people for not consuming enough. There have been several news articles as of late because the Finnish economy is going down. That they say that, Finnish consumers, they are just hoarding up all that money and it's just on their savings accounts and they should be consuming. It's just like weird in a world where we definitely overconsume all the time and we should reduce consumption. That then mainstream media in Finland is shaming people for not consuming enough. But that's the only positive thing that comes from consumption, economic growth. But if we think about the fact that, gosh, the whole idea that we are consumers is from 1700s. We had nice societies before that. We had growth before that. Look at the ancient Rome. It wasn't just like flat thing, no growth. They were coming up with all kinds of scientific inventions. And ancient Greece as well. During the Middle Ages, even though the idea is that there wasn't much development, but there was, and people were not still seen as consumers, firstly. So, yeah, economy is gonna get better, but if we just stop consuming, something else is gonna emerge. A system like that, if the building blocks shatter, then the whole system is gonna shatter. Humanity is not going to go anywhere. People are still gonna be around, and we're gonna have some different kind of system that runs the world. Money is not gonna go anywhere either. I mean, we have seen societies that used money that did not rely on the idea of everyone being a consumer, and they did just fine. Now, if we think about the negative things that happen for you when you are a consumer, or for one thing that happens to you and one thing that happens to the environment. Well, of course, you consume. Every time you consume anything, it's bad for the environment. Almost every time. Maybe you can buy some seeds and plant trees. Maybe that's good for the environment. Most of the time, no matter how organic the thing is that you buy or whether it has been recycled or whatever, it's still manufactured somewhere and it has been brought to you somehow, and that somehow usually produces CO2, and there is usually way much more to it that is harmful for the environment, like all kind of forever chemicals that we get now from plastic, all kind of local environmental disasters that we get from some factory just releasing all their wastewater to a local lake or a pond or whatever. All of that is going to be bad for the environment, and consumption, kind of like by definition, consumption by definition is bad for the environment. So, us being consumers is very bad for the environment. And then us being consumers is very bad for us as well. Because if you think about it, you go to Temu, you buy something for 100 euros, something you don't need, but something that you kind of wanted to get, because you had this idea that like, everyone wants this new thing. It happens all the time. Like sometimes there is something that is fashionable that everyone wears, or sometimes there is a new fitness gadget that promises that you're gonna get abs just by sitting on this thing, and then everyone gets it, or a lot of people get it because it's the new flashy thing that you should get, give it a try and forget about it. So you buy the new flashy thing, whatever it is, for 100 euros on Temu, you get it, you use it once or twice, and then you throw it somewhere and you never look at it again. In 10 years, you go through your closets and you're like, what the heck do I have here? And then you just like throw all that to trash, including the 100 euro Temu item. So you consume things that you really don't need, you lose money. Instead, you should be either saving or investing the money. If you already have savings, start investing. If you don't have savings, build up savings. Because if you save 100 euros now, after 10 years you will still have the 100 euros. Of course, there are people who say that there is inflation. Inflation is gonna eat some of the money, and maybe in 10 years you don't have 100 euros, you have 90 euros worth of money. Regardless, it's still better than not having anything, which would be the case that you buy something you don't need and you throw it away. The other thing is, of course, investment, and of course people say that like, oh, you invest in some company, you might lose it all. You might lose it all, you might lose some of the money, or the company might just do okay and you kind of retain the money, or you might make even more money. And you can take some safer investments, like you can invest in index funds. And this thing would be very beneficial for you, but it's not beneficial for the society and the system that we have. So that's why we have been poisoned with this idea that we should be consuming all the time, that we are consumers. We are given the label consumer, and it entails consumption. Even if we try to reduce consumption, we mostly consume, we mostly use the money to something else that we don't think it's consumption in the same way. Like instead of buying goods, we might be buying subscriptions or going on a vacation somewhere. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to consume, and all of us, we should consume to a degree. I mean, we need things. We live in a society where it's not just enough to have a house and have food on the table. Well, you also need to have a computer. You also need to have a phone. And that's just how it is, especially that the societies are becoming more and more digital. In Finland, it would be practically impossible to live without a smartphone currently, because everything happens on a smartphone. If you try to go to a bank, they tell you, no, don't come here. You use the mobile app or use internet banking. But we also but if you want to break out of this chain of consumption, then we should start investing more money, I feel. And that's what I think now, because I mean, I'm interested in technology myself, and of course over the years I have bought a lot of technology, a lot of different gadgets that, of course, they promised big things, but then in the end, like most of those promises were false. Like, for example, I'm recording this video on this super nice camera, and as you can see, the video quality is not that good. Also, my microphone is of a brand, and it sounds like crap anyways. They always make products that they claim they are good, and then they are not, and then they want you to buy the next one, the more expensive one, or the next generation that fix the issues that were introduced in those products to begin with. So in the end, what do you have to do as an individual? Well, I think that you should question the idea of you being a consumer and you start looking into option of investing, because if you want to grow wealth, that's kind of like the easiest way. You have your money working for you. So what do you should do as a consumer? This is not some sort of like a video where I moralize you and I'm going to tell you that you should stop consuming and whatever. It's more like take these thoughts and you think about it, like, do you want to be a consumer, and what is the degree to which you want to be a consumer, and what else could you do with your money? Some people already know this, most people don't, and because most people don't, most people are actually consumers. That's why many economies are growing. But think about it. Do you want to follow this ideology or not? We have evidence of societies that used to work way well before this whole idea of consumers. Okay, this was my second video on this channel, so please leave a like and subscribe if you liked it. I had a previous video about AI bubble. I'll put a link here, you can watch it. I also started a Reacts channel. Please go there, subscribe as well. I put my first Reacts video there. It's about scary forest encounters, so go and watch it as well if you want something that's a bit more light and not so heavy as the topics on this channel are gonna be. Thank you very much. Bye bye.